Okay, thanks, David. So everybody out there, welcome to Richardson Plano Networkers Thrive Mastermind with our guest speaker today, Rhonda Farrell. Rhonda's talk today will focus on 5 keys to gaining greater clarity, alignment, and performance. So you might ask, what enables people and organizations to handle transformation with such acumen that it springboards them to exponential success? In today's mastermind, you'll learn the 5 keys to mastering the art of both personal and professional continuous innovation, so you too can leap over your abyss into the high performance success zone. Dr. Rhonda Farrell, 30-plus year warrior journey serving the U.S. Marine Corps, Fortune 500, state, civil, and federal government agencies in the areas of transformational change management. She ignites, engages, encourages, and empowers warriors and organizations to ever higher levels of performance and excellence. Please join with me in welcoming Dr. Rhonda Farrell.
Randy, what a phenomenal introduction. How am I going to follow that with my talk now? You did awesome. Thank you, sir. So I just want to say welcome to each and every one of you that's on the line today or that will be listening later. Really, this next period of time is all about you, feeding you perhaps some new ideas to help you gain clarity, alignment, and higher levels of performance. David and Randy, do we typically go around the room and ask people what might be a challenge that they're having in this area, or do you want me to kick it off with our first key?
You can go ahead, and if anybody chooses to share any of those things, but I open your mic and I'll call on you. Otherwise, we'll launch into the first key, get them warmed up a little bit, prime the pump, so to speak. Anybody have anything along those lines that they'd like to offer before we get started? Okay, I think, Rhonda, we're going to go ahead and launch into your focus, and then we will, I'm sure, be engaging folks as we go.
Thank you so much. So traditionally, when we're undergoing these discussions with practitioners, with leaders, executives, even teams and organizations writ large, we're typically trying to understand where their pain points, where their challenges, where have they been stuck at, and what is the impact that's going unrealized at this stage on their journey. And we approach that, to Randy's point earlier, twofold. Sometimes the inner world of the executive and the leader bleeds over into their professional world. So we want to understand if there's barriers and constraints that they're personally facing, and or how that may be showing up within a team, a community organization, or an organization writ large. The first thing we typically undertake in this area is something called discovery. And I just want to reiterate how important it is to talk very truthfully and transparently about what may be going on, both from a success and a challenge point of view as we move through this. So in the discovery area, we want to think of this as the first step along our transformation towards higher performance journey. And we want to understand what assessment mechanisms we have to allow people to understand truly where they are on a continuum with regard to gaining access to more clarity, what they really want to be working on going forward, and how they might go about getting a deeper understanding of what some of these areas encompass. And oftentimes what we do is we offer them a holistic assessment wheel, which I'm going to show to you now. In this assessment wheel, much like what you heard our team talk about earlier, right? You heard about practitioners and leaders that focus on turnarounds. You heard about how to bolster that through the place of financial work streams that enable you to gain access to more capital, access to more benefits, so that you can build and scale and scope your business accordingly. And then you heard Jeff talk about overlaying all of the strategic communications and components to ensure that your message is on point and your message is engaging, and most of all, that it's resonating with the stakeholders and the leaders and the organization personnel that you are serving. So in this particular, we call this a work aid, right? What we want to be doing with our leaders is having each and every one of you go through this discovery exercise. We typically drive the conversation around these particular areas, because again, the person, the leader, the executive, the SME, the practitioner, brings their whole self to work, or should be able to bring their whole self to work, and be able to have that actualized in some way, shape, or form to drive heightened alignment, so that you can get ever greater amounts of performance from each individual, as well as your teams, as well as your organizations. So oftentimes we're going to start with the externalities. We're going to look at the areas that most closely align with the team that's actually holding this workshop. So we might be brought in to help a leader who's having, I don't want to always couch in the terms of challenges. Maybe a leader wants to grow and scale their portion of the organization, or their initiative, or their product at a service, to a point where either the organization or they themselves as a leader or executive have not been before. And so we need to really ascertain where they're at and the goals they're attempting to move forward on internal to that organizational unit. So we want to probably be focused on first the career and growth areas, the money and finance areas, as well as the growth and learning, and the environmental factors, right? So we typically focus on those first as applied to the professional setting. We have them rate them. I don't know if the people on the line today want to undertake this. We can do this in parallel. Happy to have each of you rate yourself in each of those areas on a scale of 1 to 10, i.e., I am fully actualized in that component of my life, or I have areas of growth that I want to undertake. So you would just rate yourself at a number 1 to 10. So do we have any brave souls that would like to speak to money and finance, career and growth and leadership, and or their environment that maybe they have a growth opportunity for that they're seeking currently?
If anybody has wants to open, Don Huff, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, so what do I do?
You choose which of these areas you want to focus on. Just pick one, and then tell me a number from 1 to 10 of where you fall along that continuum.
Oh, pick one category? Okay.
Yes.
let's see. To do some of these I'm doing pretty well, and I guess I'll do money and finance for 10 points.
Thank you. Okay, so a 10 means you're already hitting it out of the park there. Do you have
No,
room
no,
for growth?
I was making a game show joke.
Got it. It's okay.
Money and finance, 4.
Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Huff. I'm so grateful. So what we want to be doing here is understanding the why behind that, right? So when we do this within organizations and someone says, I'm in this particular area, along this continuum, I'm this number. The first questions we're going to engage with that person with is in the context of the organization or the context of the setting, why do they feel that's the case? So would you like to share with us, your rating is 4 out of 10. Why did you choose that and what's going on for you?
Well, I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of my business day, so I'm thinking about money and finance. Thinking about getting a full-time job, and still wondering if I can keep my freelance work if I teach full-time at the university. I'm over 60, be 62 next week, so I'm wondering about retirement. And I don't have enough in the bank in the retirement accounts to last into old age. And I'm wondering if, Social Security is still going to be there, Medicare.
I love it. So you have
And I know that I didn't do as well as my father did.
Thank you for sharing that. Right. So what we really heard was all of we heard the why. Right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to understand where you want to move to. Right. That would be our next key as we look through this, is to help each person get to the point where they can illuminate what the potential opportunities are for them to move forward. So if you were to think about your money and financial situation, if you're a 4 now, and you look at just 2022, where would you want to move the needle to in 2022 along that continuum?
Well, upward. In this year, I'd be happy to get to a 5 or a 6.
Very good. Dawn,
move it. Hello?
Yes, no, you're perfect. I'm sorry, didn't mean to step on. Go ahead.
That's it.
Don Huff, thank you. Thank you for being the brave soul to raise your hand to talk about where you're at. And you gave us a small gold mine of challenges with regard to what you're facing. And then also what we heard is where he wanted to move to, but also what he wanted to be experiencing as we unwound those challenges and issues and opportunity space. So what we typically move to in key number 2 is called illumination. So we want to help each person on this journey ideate with regard to how they move from where they pictured themselves to be at this particular area of their life to how they can change that and reach their outcome overall. So Dawn, if you had to pick, could you help me understand maybe 1 to 3 things as you move from your place of discovery? I'm at a 4, I want to move to a 5 and 6. What are some ideas that you yourself may have, given what you told us earlier, to help you move upwards along that continuum?
Am I supposed to pick something off this list?
No, it's for you. When you think about, I'm at a 4 because of those things you listed off, but I want to move to a 5 and 6. What's one thing that you think you could potentially do to change your monetary and financial state to help you achieve that 5 or 6 outcome that you're seeking?
Oh, well, that would be to get this full-time job teaching at the college.
Got it. Okay. So then what we typically do with stakeholders is we would have that be an iterative process, right? So we would say, Don, okay, now what's one more thing that you could do? Don, I don't want to keep putting you on the spot. So the other thing that we do is sometimes the people whom are engaged with this haven't been through this process before, right? They've not seen the assessment model. They might not understand the methodology. And so what we try to do is we try to assist, right? So we would have a little small table, we would have breakouts, or we would do Zoom breakouts to help each of the participants do a little bit deeper dive into what's in the realm of possible for them. So is there any brave soul that's on the line with us today that heard what Don put out there for reasoning why he's at a 4 and kind of heard his intent, that would like to offer some potential alternatives or additional steps that he might want to think about as an approach to help him move upwards in that money and financial area?
If anybody has anything to add, go ahead and open your mic and I will bring you up to the stage. At this point, Randy, you want to go ahead? I'll add, go ahead.
Well, Don, the first thing that hit me when you said what you said was, it sounds to me like you are, for just reasons, you are backing away from your entrepreneurial business in large measure.
No, I want to do both.
Well, but you admitted that if you teach full time, being able to do both means you have to have a 24-hour day. You didn't use those words. But.
It might, yeah.
So I guess I'll ask you a question is, when you may need to do that, but is there something else you have in your Rolodex of thoughts that might be a way to increase the financial return of your private business?
No, if I had that, I wouldn't be at a 4.
Well, but okay, so I guess the issue is
not for lack of trying.
Right.
So I think the point Randy's bringing up is, holistically, how can we help Don see that there might be additional factors and elements and different ways of approaching this to really strengthen his ROI from his output, and perhaps create services aligned with each aspect so that he gets heightened return in his financial and monetary areas, right?
Yeah,
and that's
I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. Just for some reason I'm a little tongue-tied with words today, which I'm sure David is surprised at. But I would think, Don is an intelligent guy, really does good work, and I thought maybe one thought would be to get a small group of people like that are on this call today to sit down with Don and maybe come up with some thoughts that he hasn't come up with, to see if there is a salvage approach, perhaps still move forward with the employment answer, but a way to multiply the effectivity of his business.
Exactly. And I think, Randy, that's exactly what we can do, right? So as we move from discovery to illumination, you're perfectly right. We want to help our participant or help our executive or our leader or our team, right, see things from a different perspective. And then we'll think about what level of energy does that hold. Right. We move to illumination. So is there any other brave souls than Randy that would like to bring up perhaps a different way of thinking about it, or something else that Don could consider as he figures out this conundrum in his life right now of
Well,
moving from a 4 to a 5 to a 6.
okay, so let me offer something. I'm not necessarily a brave soul, and I always have to dial myself back. So let me give you a one thing. For example, first of all, I would say yes and
Yes.
and not yes but. Okay, so Don he's offered a possible solution to moving the dial on his financial situation. The other thing is he's saying yeah, and I say yes, that's awesome if he can get that. And I think that, as Randy said, that he has an amazing talent. He is the leader of our visual communications, has amazing ability to create brands, do things. I think part of it is a lot of what he's doing. This is normal in a consulting space or in an entrepreneurial space. Tends to be event driven, project driven, and so on and so forth. One of the possibilities, and I don't mean this to, is to create a community of subscription that he can be getting some people in his kind of community that would leverage his visual communication skills. That was part of why I asked him to lead the visual communication for our RP Richardson Plano Networkers community, as well as that, get people's mind around the fact, because every entrepreneur, every small business owner needs to communicate visually, needs to communicate graphically. And that's what Don really excels at and has done for many, many, many years for organizations and individuals. So I think he has an opportunity here to figure out how to enlist something that would give him a more consistent revenue stream so that he is not out. You sell once, you get a customer base. I have not heard anybody that didn't engage Don that is unhappy. Therefore, it lends itself to what I would call a managed services type of approach, because I came out of that world and I've worked with some of the tech entrepreneurs in here to move them off of the break fix to the thing. So that's kind of what I would offer up as a possibility.
I love it. Thank you so much, David. Right. So this is perfectly right. Moving from Dawn to idea number 1, to Randy, idea number 2, to David, idea number 3. And so is there anyone else that raised their hand that wants to be heard on this particular area before we move to the next stage, which is illumination?
I'll just offer just one quick question. I wonder, Ricky introduced himself. I wonder if there is an equivalent kind of organization that could retain Don's services, sort of like a franchise, or I don't know, I forget the words that Ricky Jean Wright used, but he's been doing stuff, for a long time, taking these contracts with people and selling stuff, whatever. I just wonder if there's an equivalent in Don's industry.
Thank you. And this is perfect, right? So this is really that multi-dimensional approach for Don to understand where might some revenue generating opportunities be that he hasn't necessarily thought of as a way forward. Additionally, you have an expert that may be able to help you flesh that out and perhaps pilot it somewhere where they have a warm set of contacts that you could harness as you build that out, right? So that the next thing we do in key number 2 here is called elimination, right? Once we go through our discovery phase, we pick the various slices that are most important to the organization, the leader, the team, for the strategy and the outcomes that they're currently pursuing. Then we prioritize them, right? So we would prioritize the slices that you wanted to work on. Then we go through this ideation phase, just like we went through, to get different perspectives on how those can be actualized. And then we circle back with the person that what's called in our case, in our hot seat, or who's the topic of the mastermind. And we ask them a few questions because we want to understand what they're feeling and experiencing as they're listening to these different ideas that are being generated on their behalf. And we want to understand which ones potentially have the most energy for them, that logically aligned to them or emotionally aligned to them, or that they feel they have potential capacity to take on. So if we circle back with Dawn at this stage and say, Dawn, what might have you have heard that sparked a reaction that you feel like you would potentially want to move forward with?
One of the things I've been hearing a lot about that I'd really like to sit down and discuss with someone who knows the design, knows business better, is I kept hearing about, I charge for my services by the hour. And a lot of people, I keep hearing from different people that it should be by the job. But I have several big concerns that get in the way of that. So along with what they were saying is, Dave and Randy would be like setting up packages or services in packages. I have a couple clients who are kind of on retainer and pay a monthly fee for any number of things, but that might be another package to kind of offer instead of these onesie twosie.
Yes, thank you. This is perfect. Dawn, thank you so much for really circling around. So, right, being transparent, being open about where you're at, where you're trying to move through, listening to the core root behind all of those, right? And that's really helping you actualize and harness your talents and your services and products, right, in a way that's going to heighten your monetization capability. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing what held the most alignment for you. So
wait, hold on. Ricky, did you have something before we get off of this? You had raised your hand.
Yes, I wanted to tell Don that I see that both of those things that he's talking about are requiring him to be present at both of those things. And I have always tried to figure out a way, even back when I started in 1994, is to do something that I could make money at, that I didn't have to be present. And so both the manufacturer's representative agency and the credit card processing agency, I can start a business transaction with someone and then kind of massage it as it goes along, but I don't have to be there every moment of every hour to make it work. And so, I think that if your passion is the graphic arts business that you're working on, and then you want to do another thing that requires you to be there, now you're stretching yourself. You're maybe beyond capabilities. So maybe if you want to do the teaching thing, which is a part of your passion, just switch your passion from the graphic arts business to the teaching graphic arts. You're still dealing with your passion, but you need something else that would, I don't know, you have to figure that out. Something else that would give you income that you don't have to personally be there the whole time.
And this is perfect, right? So thank you so much, Ricky, because this is really back to Randy's point, right? Early on is how can we create a subscription-based offering too that allows for passive monetization at the same time we're engaging live with maybe our primary stakeholders or our primary service offerings. And thank you so much, because Ricky really helped bring to light this whole idea of how can we, as we're moving through this scaling and scoping exercise, which is really about our life. We haven't got to that part, and we're going to bring this up, right? As Ricky was saying, it's hard to have a life if 110% of you is being utilized across all those different offerings. And I think Randy and David were mentioning that also. So as we're going through this, and thank you for raising that point, right? It is about the holistic person, right? So once we go through and understand that main place where they want to focus, then we start working with our executives and our leaders and our staff and our SMEs and practitioners about that holistic wheel. And that holistic wheel is equivalent to a life that they want to love living, right? And monetization of your skills and capabilities is the lever that you pull to enable you to do that. So Ricky interjected this at the perfect time, right? Because it's the energy, the illumination step really looks at the energy and the resonance as to, if I were to take on that particular new capability or derive that new service or create that new product or create that new membership subscription, is that aligning to the ultimate life by design end goals that I'm creating through that holistic analysis, right? And that's really the next level of analysis that we go through, right? So clarity is not only inclusive of that one slice, it's only to help you get to the point where you're able to ascertain your whole life and what you want that to look like. So I think Dawn gave us so many clues there with regard to, I want to be able to achieve retirement at some point in time. You know, we would follow up with Dawn. What does that look like to you, right? And what's the driving factor? So if you were to look at your whole life and you think of retirement, we would ask Dawn to envision, go through the discovery steps and envision what that looks like to him, both from a monetary standpoint, from a life experiences standpoint, from a geography standpoint, from a contribution and joy and family and relationships, et cetera. All of those aspects on the wheels, we eventually get to through all of our leaders and our executives, right? Because all of those are things we have to take into consideration as we're helping you create your alignment strategy and your roadmap for the future. Today, we talked about only containerizing it for this 1 year, 2022. But in reality, we typically are going to be looking at it in 1 year, 3 year, 5 year chunks, just to that point, so that we know that each step that you take along your journey, you're going to be in alignment with that longer term plan that you have thus visualized through this exercise. So let's go to back to Dawn and just say, again, out of everything you heard, plus Ricky's statements and your own, right? You identified, I think I need to change my model, my offerings model from hourly to services. I may need to, now that you've heard Ricky talk about that, bolstering what Randy said, was there anything else that you might want to prioritize for the next step for you? to pilot. This isn't like I have to do this forever, right? What we're trying to do is create.
No, I'm wondering if I have to participate for the entire hour. I thought I was answering a quick question. I didn't know I was going to be the guinea pig for the whole of her presentation, but that's okay. No, I would really like to meet with someone to discuss the pros and cons of this, pricing yourself by the hour or by the job, and to really understand that difference. Because I know the work, but it's the business side that I've been struggling to learn.
Fantastic.
And I think if it goes into by the job, then that might be an opportunity to set up some packages that could be advertised. But there's just so much question and hands-on with my work. I know that Ricky has, his income from his credit cards and stuff, but really, how do you not be hands-on with your music career? Obviously, your passion for singing requires your presence. So I hadn't really noticed anything. I've never noticed anything that I thought would be a passive income stream for myself. Websites can be a passive income stream, but I don't host them or update them. I design them, which requires my presence. So,
and I love it, Don. You are articulating exactly where most people constrain themselves potentially, right? Or organizations to think that you yourself have to do all of that, right? Or be all of that, or have all of those skills, right? So a lot of times what we're working with our executives and our leaders and our teams with is, as soon as you go to the point, the statement you just made, right? We're going to go to the model of Dan Sullivan, who, not how, right? So as soon as you feel yourself hitting that wall of a potential constraint, because how do you scale? We're going to immediately drive the conversation from discovery, illumination into alignment, right? Because an alignment is about understanding your priorities, your life needs, what resonates most with you, what has the most energy for you, but also then we're going to go to the next round of discovery and illumination, which is how can you thus scale from a point of you don't have to do it all. Who has, to your point, a system of systems? Who might have services that you can partner with? Who might have monetization in a box where basically you create affiliations, right? So you want to look at your graphics and your services expertise. We want to tear that apart to understand, what do you enjoy the most? How is that going to lead ultimately to your life by design? What's 2 or 3 intermediary steps that you can take at this stage? And what's 2 to 3 steps that you can take at this stage to be able to move yourself, your business, and your life forward, right? So we call this key number 3, and this is alignment, right? We want to really understand how the choices that are on the table before you that you've stated you want to put into motion align with your strategy, align with your mission, align with your values, and align with your blueprint for success, right? And Randy and David and Ricky have all indicated that there's some possibilities that you may want to think through. And for you, you said, before I move to this next stage where I'm going to build out that roadmap for myself, right? I want to be able to work with experts. I want to be able to work with a coach. I want to be able to work with a mentor, or like Randy, a turnaround transformation, right? So how can I build expertise through partnering or gaining access to services that are not in competitive to what I do, but are adjacent and parallel to, so that I can harness them to increase my performance. So again, Key 1, discovery. Key 2, illumination. Key 3, alignment. So I'll offer a point back to Randy, because I think Randy made a very good point and observations early on about subscriptions and monetization and different ways that Don could look at this. From Randy's takeover perspective, it's interesting. Maybe he can share from an organizational standpoint how they typically move through this cycle, so that you can compare and contrast, right? What's the qualitative or quantitative criteria that they typically put into place from a turnaround perspective, so that you can see any differences in the path that you can potentially take. Randy, would you be willing to address 1 or 2 points there for us?
Well, I'll try. Typically when I'm called in as a consultant to try to help a company move to its next threshold, I learned after the first one that I didn't have all the answers. But I also learned that many of the answers existed with the people in the organization, and they were frustrated because other management that were there actually kept them down from raising those kinds of things. So I would think perhaps with Don would be maybe a couple of people would sit with Don and do a brainstorming session about, number one is, what are the different talents that he brings to the table? Number 2, where could those talents be applied? In other words, what kinds of companies, what kinds of situations, and then how best to go about doing that with the thought in mind of, can he, trying to think of the right word, can he segment his talents so that there's critical ones that only he can do, but there's ones that he can sub out to other people in his industry, friends, et cetera, and then find a way to create a business model for that, with, again, the objective that he doesn't have to do all the work, but he's got, now obviously he's going to make less money on tasks that he subs out to somebody else, but it also, he can get to the end game for the client faster if he's got other people bringing ideas to the table, and then he can assign the execution of those ideas to those people. Now, obviously, he has to stay engaged to make sure that those people that he farms it out to, so to speak, don't mess it up, because it's his. He still has the client. But a little, school of hard knocks, he learns who to trust, who not to trust very, very quickly. And he probably has people that he's worked with before that he could do this. So those are just sort of a quick assessment of what I think he could do if he so desires.
Thank you so much, Randy. So that's the turnaround. And I think we're talking about the same things, right? When we're talking about an organization, but we're also at the same time talking about a person's life and the life that they're trying to design. And instead of looking at it from I have a service or I have a job, and working only from the limitations of your known knowledge of that and the revenues you're trying to create, we typically take our leaders and our executives from the outside in, right? We want, through that holistic wheel, to have our executives and leaders, practitioners and SMEs create the vision of the holistic life they want to be living. And from that, we then work backwards to derive different ways for them to be able to achieve that outcome. And if part of their choices are to be an entrepreneur, be an employee, create additional entrepreneurial offerings, then we work those plans in parallel to help them until they get to their next checkpoint, that they need to then ascertain what's going to be our keys 4 and 5, right? So as we go through clarity, illumination, and alignment to our strategy and our bigger picture vision, we have to do the planning. And most of all, we have to get to the point where we can actually evaluate our progress against our goals and our outcomes that we had envisioned and put into play. So this particular key.
Hey, Rhonda, can I, before we get to, Vin had a question or had raised his hand, and I wanted to make sure that if before you get into the next key, if there was something that he needed in this place, if that's okay.
Please.
My name is Ben Vanderweel. Thanks for allowing me to share. When I heard Don talking about, I'm really great at this, but I'm not good at the business side. That seems to be when you're a creative person, that tends to be usually the problem, especially an entrepreneur, because you're focused on the one thing that you're really good at, which is great, but then you have a weakness. So I was just going to kind of piggyback on what Randy was saying. He actually filled in the blanks for me, is find someone that you can trust that knows the business side, maybe do a collaborative partnership. Like, hey, I'm great at this creative stuff, but I can't manage the business side because I don't understand how that works. And pulling that together, that's just a suggestion. It's not telling, but it's just something that I kind of came to the conclusion to.
And bless you. And that's perfect, right? Because it truly is who, not how. I think that's the biggest aha moment that most executives and leaders and entrepreneurs have, is that they don't have to do it all, right? They have the choice to focus on their core competencies. And what you were just saying, Vin, is that you have your sweet spot or your core competencies or your specialty skills that nobody else brings, right? Your one thing. And when you focus on that, that's when you can heighten your acceleration. And to your point exactly, it's about finding the trusted partners that help fill the capability gap to enable you to achieve to the next level. And that's exactly for key number 4. This planning and evaluation takes into account exactly that, right? It helps you ascertain your next steps forwards towards the realization of the goals based on the 3 prior steps and analysis that you took. And in addition, it's going to oftentimes put in place some tools and some opportunities for you to identify exactly where those capability gaps exist, and to have you do a deep dive into what we would call your well of opportunity, right? Your well of opportunity is, who do I have that's directly adjacent to me that I can pull expertise from? Who's in my circle of influence and or control that I can tap to provide a capability? Who do I have in second or third order degrees of separation that I could potentially partner with at some level? I'm either trading services or I'm creating monetary agreements to enable us to both achieve revenue outcomes. So I think, and that's exactly perfect, been perfect interjection there. So again, we want to be putting in a construct for how you can evaluate that, right? So far, a lot of what we talked about is qualitative in nature, right? I want to move from X to Y. I have a number in mind, but I also have an experiential outcome that I want to be achieving in this step in key number 4 in planning and evaluation. Now we're going to put in place a quantitative construct to help you understand your rankings and rating with regard to your services that you're offering, where you have capability gaps, where you may be able to reach to fill those capability gaps, and what's the timeline that you want to potentially fill those capability gaps along to reach your outcomes, right? So we put in place a very simple model that enables you to gather that information quickly, prioritize it, and quantify it for the revenue and monetization outcomes that you're seeking, and or your other life changes that you want to put in place in parallel with that. Do we have, before we move to the last key, do we have anything else that anybody wants to raise as we move along our journey?
If you have any other comments or questions, or at this point, just go ahead and open your mic and I'll spotlight you and you can bring it up. Not seeing any, Rhonda, so keep plowing ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so the last key in our 5 keys to greater clarity, alignment, and performance is we look at the action that we're going to take. We look at improvements that we need to undertake. And last but most importantly is the innovations that we're going to harness and leverage to help us achieve our outcomes. So here, as most everybody spoke about today, not only do we need to understand where we're at, to understand where we're driving towards, we also need to understand how that aligns with our current business construct, either the business organization entities we've created or the strategy, mission, vision, and initiatives that we currently have in place. Then we do the capability gap analysis or the partner gap analysis to understand how we achieve to the next level. And then we need to put it into action. So when we put it into action, we work with our clients, we work with the organizations to basically create a roadmap, right? So we want to take that updated strategic roadmap, we want to take that updated mission, we want to take that updated set of initiatives, and then we want to apply a target, we want to apply KPIs, we want to apply a metric and a measurement to enable each of you to ascertain what that next step should be, could be, and how we're going to measure if we got there. Why is that important? Is because we're going to set a clock tick with regard to when we're going to look at how we're doing in our actualization against our plan. And then we're going to course correct. So for some organizations and leaders, this is an annual undertaking. For others, it's semi-annual. For those probably in a turnaround situation, it's much more compact schedule. And so we're going to shorten that to quarterly, monthly, maybe even weekly, depending on how dire their particular situation is. So action taking, ascertaining the gap between actual versus expected, and then we're going to go into the course correction. So before we go into some of those details, is there anything that anybody wants to raise about what I just spoke about, or give an example of something that they did, an action that they took, where they can share the process of really that actual versus expected and how they had to course correct to achieve greater alignment? I think Randy probably sees this in his transformation undertakings quite a bit, where if
In
there's
fact, I'm gonna go on unmute. I had my hand raised, but since you mentioned my name, I popped. But I'm looking at the slide that you have up, and I can tell you, if you start in the top left corner, which I believe we do, one of the problems that I've seen in the industry of consulting is they tend to come in at the alignment stage too quickly with, okay, let's talk about what's your strategy, what's your mission, what's your vision, what are your values. They start there. And sometimes that's a good place, you know, like for Don to stay, what is his mission, what is his vision, what are his values? But maybe he hasn't done enough of the exploration and the discovery. That would then give him some illumination into what are his alternatives. And then from there, he can come up with a strategy. I think I'd like to partner with a couple of people, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to offer that thought.
I think, Randy, you're right on, right? So sometimes, and I can't tell you the amount of times that clients can get mired down in the complexity of going over what they've already created, 1, 3, 5, 10 years in the past, right? Sometimes for very large organizations, and you have a transformation or medium-sized organization, there's merits in that because they're not necessarily throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? They are where they are with regard to that core construct, and what consultants can, and coaches and turnaround transformationists can do is really help highlight perhaps some gaps in the content of that so they can move to the next stage of transformation. In other cases, to Randy's point, they may not have built that out at all, or they are willing to transform an entirety and relook at that. And that's very freeing for them. That's maybe very freeing for an entrepreneur to look at that. But it can also be very complex, right? So to Randy's point, until someone does a little bit of a deep dive into, what Don was saying, right? I feel these are my core competencies, and these are the ways I want to actualize on those core competencies. But because I haven't been surrounded by other people that think in a different way, that's my box right now. I can only think within that box and see within that box because I haven't experienced something different from that. And to the point of the merits of the mastermind and the merits of the roundtable is really being able to introduce Don to new ways of thinking, new business models, new revenue generation ideas, and new opportunities for services and packages, et cetera, to help him move out of his experience box, right? And that's really where the who, not how comes into play. It really enables us to understand, Don articulated it so well, right? Here's my comfort zone in how I want to harness my expertise to move forward. And here's how I'd really like somebody else to guide me or provide expertise so that I can align and accelerate to a higher level of performance. And I think that's beautiful that what you're offering today is the mastermind and roundtable as a way to do that quickly, efficiently, and effectively, and get in front of you SMEs and experts to help you move forward at the critical points in time where you recognize the opportunity space that exists.
Rhonda, okay, so just for a time check, just so you know, we're getting to the point. So I want to make sure you've been very good about engaging, and this group, as I told you, is not unwilling to engage. So, but I wanted to make sure that that we get through whatever additional content you have here, so that we've got probably maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap.
Thank you so much, David. This is perfect. And so I think it really takes us up to the last 2 points of key number 5, and that's improvement and innovation. So as we move through this, we're not going to throw away the things that we've discovered before. We're not going to throw away the prior prioritization or the learnings that we did in the illumination phase. We're not going to throw away the analysis that we did, aligning back to strategy, mission, core values, et cetera, if we had those in place. Because at the point in time where we've taken the action step and we're ascertaining where we're at against our KPIs or our targets, those are going to help us course correct to gain the next level of performance. The last point in key number 5 is innovation. And so oftentimes what we're doing is, as we're having internal masterminds and roundtables, they may be breakout session, they may be roundtables on a certain area of the organization as aligned to that holistic wheel, or it may be focused on a particular challenge or issue space that that organization or team is having. We're going to be bringing an innovation toolbox to our leaders and our executives so that they can harness these different ways of thinking about a problem. To Randy's point, it's not, and to Don's point, and to Ricky's point and David's point, right? It's not, there's not only one way to think about it. Having an innovation toolkit, or in some cases, allows us to look at a business model as a way of enhancing our performance. It may allow us to look at the value we're creating or the service and impact we want to be having, and working backwards to creating additional products and or services to enhance the performance or monetization. It may be looking at using something called a force field analysis. So when we have more longer term sustaining organization, there may be inertia, or there may be resistance that's built up into the stakeholders through tried and failed change efforts, right? And so what we are trying to do is find forces for and drivers against, so that we can understand if our stakeholder set as a whole, or executive team as a whole, or leadership team as a whole is more pro than con. And if they're more con than pro for certain outcomes or initiative ways forward, we know that we have some additional improvements or readiness actions that we need to take on to get them to the stage where they can move to that next higher level of alignment and performance. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation today in this activity. I thank you, Dawn, for raising your hand, for your transparency in where you're currently at, where you want to be going, the types of tools and capabilities and partners that you're looking for at this stage. And I want to welcome you to reach out to me at Global Innovation Strategies, LLC, if I can be of further service to you, your membership, and or your organization as you move to your next level of clarity, alignment, and performance in your life and in your business. Thank you so much, David, Randy, Jeff, and team, Ruth, for all being here and for being able to present this topic with each and every one of you today.
All right, Rhonda, if you can end your screen share, that would be awesome. Let's give her a hand. Great job. Awesome discussion. Exactly what Dawn, I will thank you as well. Thank you for being actually a great illustration. I couldn't have designed a better illustration for the potential of a mastermind and how we're approaching this today. So thank you, Rhonda, for sharing your methodology, your approach, and engaging the group. I will tell you, and Randy did a direct message with me, and if you can kind of think through this, and anybody watching this, by the way, on replay, the intention originally for the mastermind was to go in, and then as we uncovered some opportunities, goals, challenges, these kinds of things, moving to the next level, we actually had envisioned having a session where we focused on Don, or we focused on Ricky, or we focused on Zip, or we focused on Ruth, and tried to figure out how we can, as a mastermind, expanding our thinking as a team, around these kinds of things. So thank you for that structure. It's been awesome. And again, thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. And for those who I didn't pick it up earlier, Rhonda will be my podcast guest. If you want to hear a little bit of her story and why she's doing what she's doing and that kind of thing, next Thursday. So if you want to tune into that, the replay for this will be on the YouTube channel. And if you have not subscribed to that YouTube channel, I need 2 more subscribers. 2. That's 2. 2 more subscribers to be able to brand the channel.